Alright guys, Scrappy again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far, with major drama with the FaZe Rebrand seemingly going down. Scrappy's given his perspective to Ksan and Zuma to say, what are you guys cooking up with this FaZe Vegas team going into next season? Of all the brandings in the CDL, of all the drama that we've had with it over the last several years, frankly, going from a situation where we had 12 organizations to start the league and basically none of them exist in the way that they previously did. Is this the worst of all if this comes true for FaZe next season? Very much intro to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into. Wanted to start here really on the 10th of September, Call of Duty said this: as part of the ongoing effort to upgrade our security and combat cheating, we'd like to share a progress report on Season 5 and give a look to see what's coming in Season 7. Learn more on the report from hashtag Team Ricochet. So yeah, as we all know, Ricochet are highly effective in catching and dealing with cheaters, and Crowder says they're just flat out lying at this point. So we know that, look, we're here in the off season, there's always a lot of talk about around this time of the year about cheaters, problems with cheaters, top to bottom. Doug's usually going off on the main stage about it. Nature and Scump have given their thoughts on it recently as well. And it is a key conversation point going into Black Ops 7 because the game might be fantastic. I mean, I don't want to get my hopes up, but the game looks pretty good. Looks like Black Ops 6, but a bit better. The maps are almost certain to be better, I think, than Black Ops 6. They've got a ton of good remasters. They've got a few Black Ops 2 maps coming back. The big rumour is that Raid will return. I mean, that's confirmed. Express is returning, confirmed. Hijacked is returning, confirmed. Rumours that maybe Meltdown is coming back. Great search and destroy map from BO2. Among others, Yemen is coming back as well. Great hardpoint map from BO2. So already that's like 5. There were rumours that Gridlock from Black Ops 4 is coming back as well, so at least we know that we have some reasonably solid maps, in addition to hopefully some other decent original maps as well, with the wall bouncing or whatever, that they're going to play around with for the new game. So there is reason to at least be confident that Black Ops 7 is going to be solid, and it should be a good year for competitive. The problem is that, as Scump and many others have said, if the cheaters are still around, not just in Warzone, where Crowder's playing a lot of, or of course ranked play as well, it does ruin the experience to a great extent. Call of Duty love tweeting about what they're doing to improve security and combat cheating. Many players will say, I don't know what you're talking about. Things look exactly the same to me. But speaking of FaZe, a pretty interesting thing spotted yesterday with Drazah. Of course, he's playing all sorts of Chals all of the time. And I can just look at his Twitter account here and you can see how many Chals this guy plays. So, I mean, look at this, right? So he's got a 4v4 Chal. He's got a Black Ops 3 Muddy 8s Chal. He's got a 4v4 Black Ops 3 Chal, 2v2 Black Ops 3 Chal, 2v2 Black Ops 3 Chal. And then he's playing here, interestingly, with Neptune and 04, we'll get to in a second. And then back to the one that we just saw. So this is all in one night, right? Like, the guy's absolutely cooking. 2v2 Cold War Chal with 04. Now, 04, he's been playing with 04 a little bit lately, but just, you know, Cold War with 04 does make it more likely that they might well be teammates next season. That, of course, has been the big rumour as of late. Simp is to stay, there's no doubt. Drazah is to stay, there's also no doubt about that. They've officially confirmed it as of recording. 04 and Abuzah haven't been locked in, but it makes more sense. That's going to happen now. He also played with Neptune as well. Just thought it was kind of interesting because Neptune, previous teammates with 04, and they go in their separate ways. Neptune, we think, is going to the Gentlemate. It is interesting to think about what could have been here, because let's not forget when Shotzzy, shortly after all this roster drama was going down, said that he's surprised that Neptune didn't get the spot on FaZe. He thought that he could well have done. So I don't know if Drazah's got any thoughts on that precisely, or because we understand that Neptune during the World Cup, even before, was having conversations with other teams to try and finesse his way onto a spot. That was the big rumour, and that's like, wow, shock, right? Like, that's exactly what you should do. As far as I'm concerned, as a player, you should play the politics game, especially if you know your team is cooked next season anyway, which it clearly was, because Surge weren't willing to pay any more money to keep those guys around. It was clearly inevitable internally at that team that that roster would be blowing up. So I understand why Neptune would want to consider his other options going there towards the World Championship, towards the World Cup at the end of the year. Now, there were rumours that Ksan and the guys at FaZe weren't so happy with that. They didn't want to hire a snake, basically, I guess is the way to look at it. But it's also pretty controversial, that, because that was exactly Formal's reputation before he joined OpTic, and then he stayed on OpTic for a rather long time, and the rest, of course, is history. So if that was the reason why FaZe didn't sign him, then I do wonder a little bit if Drazah is in these chals, and maybe Neptune's dropping 15 kills, 04's dropping 12, and he's like, ooh, well, I don't know. I think 04 could be a good counterpart, but it's interesting that they could have had Neptune if they wanted. I actually think the 04 move, though, makes a lot of sense. I do really quite like it, and from a top-level perspective, it actually might have been what I would have done, but in terms of upside, you're probably not getting the same as you would have had if you bring in Neptune and it really works. But that, of course, is a very good question. But speaking of FaZe, what about the rebrand? So, Riyadh Falcons are now a thing. They've got rid of the old Vegas Falcons logo. As solid, I thought, as it was. They've gone for this new version, and it's pretty nice as well. That, of course, as we understand, leaves the Vegas slot open. A couple of years ago, I don't know if it was Hex who said this or somebody else, but there was talk that the CDL were holding the Vegas spots. There's understandably was a lot of interest from multiple different franchises in locating to Vegas. It's premium location if the geolocation things still exist. The understanding was that the CDL were holding that for some reason, and we don't know if that was for the Falcons or for some other organisation. There might have been some rumours about this, but of course what eventually happens, surprisingly enough, is that Paris just moved over to Vegas, and it was like, why? They're certainly not a premium organisation, and then we had the Falcons buy them out, Paris was gone, then Vegas became the Falcons, and now Falcons are going to Riyadh, which leaves the Vegas spot open once again. So whether that FaZe interest, let's say, in Vegas was always there, it actually makes sense for a few reasons. Like, okay, I think it's pretty funny, right? But we talked about it last year when Falcons were in Vegas. It's like, Falcons, Vegas, it doesn't really align, right? In terms of the culture and the moral compass, you might say, of the respective organizations. Never really made much sense for me to Falcons to be out in Vegas, but for FaZe, I mean, absolutely, right? This makes perfect sense, and I like to see it. The question is, what are they going to do with their branding? How's that going to look? Is it going to be like this? So we saw these pictures the other day starting to float around, and Scrapper's now given his perspective on it. He pretty much talks to Zuma, he talks to Kaiten and says, damn, you guys could have come up with anything. He even comes up with his own ideas on what they could have done instead. The bottom line is, not many are a big fan of this.
That's our old one. That shit's ass, bro. Kason, that shit is ass, bro. Kason, that shit is ass. Square root of Vegas, yeah, on God. Yo, Tom, you're in here as well. Dumb, this shit's ass, bro. This shit is so ass. I'm trying to look at it in different ways. Bro, where is this tough? I think maybe, like, I'll help you out a little. Maybe, why not the V before? V with the F that way. V with the F that way. Tom, someone said this is a square root of Vegas. I'm just seeing what I see. And what the chat sees, the square root of Vegas, that's what someone else came up with.
So the square root of Vegas, or I guess what would be like the square root of aGas or whatever, right? Because technically the V is all part of that. I thought it was pretty funny, and they're probably not going to go, they may use this one a little bit, but again, what I don't really like about this Vegas logo is that it's all about Vegas, right? Like, it surely is meant to be all about FaZe. So that's why logos like this have started to throw around. This is, you know, a perfectly acceptable logo, I think, but of course the V is first, and I think that is the debate right now as to whether that's why they've not done this, because this is basically the Atlanta FaZe logo, but without the A and with a V there instead, which is perfectly fine, I think, is, you know, it's not totally ugly, it's not as pretty as the Atlanta FaZe one, it's not quite as nice and symmetrical as that, but I think this kind of works, right? You can see the F in the FaZe, it's very clear, FaZe Vegas, but of course, just from a legibility perspective here, this would be more like Vegas FaZe, right? Because the V comes first, then the F. That might be why they don't want to do it, there might be other reasons for that, but is it better to do this? Because I think this looks cleaner, personally. And at the end of the day, people are going to say FaZe anyway. They're going to say FaZe Vegas. They're not going to say Vegas FaZe. If you brand it FaZe Vegas, even if your logo is technically the wrong way round, I don't really think in the grand scheme anyone's going to care. I think what matters more is that the branding is actually good, and I'm a little bit not convinced that it actually is, because you throw the F and the V the other way around, I don't know about that. I mean, this is another option. This is basically what they're looking at here, right? So this is kind of a mock-up of it. And look, maybe it's not completely horrible. When you look at it in the black and the white, it's always going to look worse, right? But when you look at it with a little bit of color, with a little bit of rendering, then with a little bit of an outline, then okay, maybe it becomes a little more acceptable. Still, I think I kind of like the version where the F is looking the right way, so it's very clearly all about FaZe. But yeah, intrigued to your thoughts on that in the comments. The other idea that I threw around the other day, and I just wanted to get into it in a little bit more detail, was what Cloud9 have done. Thought this is pretty funny, that Cloud9's smoke and vape shop, so maybe that's where they're actually getting the money to try and form a new roster, because I don't know what the hell they're cooking up right now. There are currently no rumors, but that is the Cloud9 logo with the Cloud9 thing, right? But the Cloud9 logo for Call of Duty is this, and it's, you know, it's pretty ugly, to be honest. It is the Cloud9 logo, and they've put NY in there, which is kind of hilarious, really. I mean, the more I look at this, the more funny I find it. That the whole, clearly Cloud9 are not bothered about the city stuff. They're not even based in New York. Like, their organization is based out of LA, I think, in California. So I don't know what they're doing really with this, but it had to be done. They had to have the city-based thing. So they were like, all right, we're just going to take our logo. We're not going to make anything new. We're not going to keep the subliners. We're just going to keep the logo. And, you know, when you make it small on the screen, you barely see the New York, right? Like, it kind of just looks like the Cloud9 logo. But obviously when it's bigger, it's a little bit more obvious. The point that I was making is that could FaZe do this, but with the main FaZe logo, right? Could they just say, we're not Vegas, we are just FaZe, and we're going to throw in somewhere or another. I mean, this is, of course, the FaZe logo with, this is quite a while ago now, because, wow, it's a long time since they've had this Counter-Strike team. But maybe, I don't know, in here somewhere, this part, like, could that bit become a V? Could you do like an, I don't know, like an L, V in a different color? It might be really ugly and not work, but it's something that FaZe could do, because they could take the legendary FaZe logo, they could do what Cloud9 have done, and they could basically just say, all right, we're FaZe. We don't care about the city-based stuff. It is what it is. And try and pretend that it doesn't matter. I don't know. So anyway, easyMac used to work for FaZe back in the day. He says it looks terrible. Should have just used, you know, FaZe Clan Vegas Shield logo. Should have used, or just FaZe Clan Dallas or something like that. Get rid of the geographical names. He talks a little bit about what happens in other esports and all this type of stuff as well. The fact that some of the brands do have different entities just because they partner with different brands and stuff. So maybe the geolocation isn't totally the end of the world. But intrigued to your thoughts, as always, on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Just one final question for you all I thought was kind of interesting. If Shotzzy and Dashy three-peat, are they the best sub and AR duo of all time? Now, okay, who are the best sub and AR duos of all time? Probably people will say Scump and Formal, right? Like, I think that's pretty much the gold standard. You look at duos in COD history, obviously you can look at Kremp, and I mean, Kremp is involved in a number of duoships technically, but Scump and Formal feels like a proper duo. So let's just take that as the gold standard. All the events they won, the absolute dominance they had from a statistical perspective as well, even individually, were just huge slayers on those OpTic rosters. And they won a world championship together. But it does have to be mentioned that if Shotzzy and Dashy as a duo were to win the 2024 world championship, the 2025 world championship, and the 2026 world championship, all back to back with whatever roster, it would be almost impossible, I think, to deny. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.